Breaking news, guys. Nancy Pelosi just recently announced that she is beginning an inquiry onto the impeachment of President Donald Trump.
This week, the president has admitted to asking the president of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
Today, I want to share with you guys exactly what happened and what this means for all of us as investors in the stock market, what's going to happen to our passive income, what's going to happen to our lovely dividends. That's what we're going to explore. And spoiler alert, is not good. Now, I'm not going to voice my political perspective in this video. I have no stake in the politics. I'm just going to give you the facts. But I will say that I think it's very sad what our democracy has become, where everything is just Democrat versus Republican and nothing really ever gets done. So on that bright note, let's begin. Okay, so here's the backstory of why this impeachment is going on. It all started in 2014 when Ukraine, aka Russia's cousin once removed, started a revolution regarding its abuse of power and corruption within the government. So the people of Ukraine did not like their pro-Russian president, Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, so they kicked him out and he skedaddled back to Russia. Now, as a result, a pro-American or a pro-Western president took over Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, and his entire goal was to build relations with the West, except nobody really trusted him because of how deep and rampant corruption runs in that part of the world. Now, as a Russian, I feel a little guilty, but I consider myself more American nowadays, except that's exactly what a spy would say. Smash like button, comrade. So Barack Obama appointed Joe Biden to go and visit Ukraine to check up on the situation. You go check up on them, bro. Let me know. I don't know how it went down. Dramatic reenactment. Around the same time, Joe Biden's son also started to visit Ukraine, where he eventually took up a position in the largest privately held gas company in Ukraine. And he started to get paid a modest salary of $50,000 per month. Nothing suspicious there at all. I mean, who said nepotism was dead, right? I wouldn't know. It's depressing. Anyway, as a result, this raised some questions as to whether or not there was a conflict of interest for Mr. Joe Biden's son to be profiting where his dad was working with the government. And I think this is a reasonable thing to at least raise some suspicion about. Oh, your dad is overseeing Apple. That's great. Hey, you've got a free MacBook Pro and a free iPhone and some AirPods too. That must have nothing to do with your dad being there at all. Mr. Biden's response to this entire investigation is very simple. My son is a private citizen, he's not part of the government, no collusion. Pot, meet kettle. I've got another one. Spider-Man meme. If you guys have no idea what that reference meant, that is just how hypocritical this whole entire situation is. So the real reason for all of this investigating and all of this fighting is one reason alone, and that is the upcoming 2020 elections, where Joe Biden is one of the top Democratic contenders to be running against Mr. Trump. And Trump is doing everything in his power to test Joe Biden and get the American people against him. Now, this can be seen as something extremely smart on Trump's behalf, except it's also very risky, because now we're seeing, allegedly, but probably indubitably, Donald Trump has broken constitutional law by asking a foreign government to help him dig for dirt against his political opponent. So now that you're caught up, and I'm caught up, because I didn't know about this before either, ain't nobody got time for that. I got bills to pay. So I'm gonna open up my stock portfolio and I'll show you what this means for my dividends, for our income, and just in general for the entire stock market. Now, we found out about this impeachment early Tuesday, and I'll show you guys exactly what my portfolio did. At its peak, it was sitting around 187,535. And then after this news broke, the market sharply declined on the same day, all the way down to a low of $185,561, which goes to show you how crazy the market reacted. And even though that's a $2,000 drop, that's still less than 1% of the entirety of my portfolio. So to me, this means absolutely nothing. In fact, throughout the week, I frequently see my portfolio drop as much as $5,000 and go up by the same amount. So that does not faze me at all. In fact, when we see that this curve goes up, That's exactly when, on September 24th, Trump tweeted that he's going to release the transcript of his call to Ukraine, which means maybe it wasn't as bad as people think. So that's why the market reacted and it went up. It didn't recover all the way through, but then it kind of trailed off. But all of this just goes to show you that stuff like this is called stock market noise. It's all noise, and it's not really the big stuff that gets to move the markets in its entirety. Now, before we make sense of this and understand where it's about to go, I want you to understand something as an investor. Love him or hate him, when it comes to Mr. Donald Trump, you have to understand something as an investor in the stock market. You have a vested interest financially in keeping him as president. That is just the truth, and I'm just gonna say it like it is. The reason for that is because businesses are much more profitable with him because of his tax cuts and all of the deregulation policies. Because if you think about it, if a regulation policy is meant to protect the environment, by doing away with it, you get all these companies that have a lot more free reign to continue pillaging and plundering the earth for more resources and profits, which makes us, the investors, very fat and very happy, while making the earth a very sad panda. Historically speaking, less regulation and less government involvement has led to a more profitable economy. Now, without getting political, this is just my observation. Generally speaking, Republicans have been a better conduit for building a more profitable economy by prioritizing less involvement of the government, in contrast to Democrats, who have prioritized progressive social issues and, of course, getting the government more involved by making the economy a much more fairer, equal level playing field. Now, I don't have a stake in either of this. I don't have a preference. I'm not saying I'm taking a side. I'm just letting you know the facts. Remember, I'm just a Russian spy here, that's all. Also, obviously, this is a joke, so please, YouTube and government, don't take me away and kidnap me and take my citizenship away. This is all joke, I'm not Russian. But let's assume the worst, that there's a 2/3 majority vote and that the House of Representatives votes to impeach and that the Democrats convince 20 Republicans in the Senate to also vote for impeachment. Now, this is all very unlikely, but if it does happen, let me show you some historical data to prepare you for what might just happen. So this is what happened to the stock market during the Nixon impeachment era between 1973 to 1974. There was a dip and then a quick recovery back up. And then in the second impeachment for the Clinton era between 1998 to 1999, the stock market went up and then it went down and then it recovered back up again. Now, during the Nixon impeachment era during the 70s, it was just a terrible decade to be a stock market investor, but that had very little to do with the Nixon impeachment itself and more to do with other economic factors, which I'll explain in a second. But during Clinton's impeachment, all you had to do was just hold on to the stocks that you owned throughout the conflict from beginning to end, and you would have ended up with more money at the end of the conflict, and all you had to do was just nothing. Or if you had just bought even more shares when it dipped at the beginning of it. But the reason for these dips in the stock market, believe it or not, has less to do with the political turmoil and the impeachment of presidents, and more to do with economic factors like the dot-com bubble during the Clinton era, and of course the Federal Reserve's inflation rate during the Nixon era that robbed a lot of investors of money. And the same can be said for our era as well. If there is an economic recession on the horizon, it'll not be because of President Trump's impeachment. It'll be for something else, like the crazy student loan debt crisis or credit card debt or even real estate lending again. And don't get me wrong, impeachment can absolutely trigger the economic crisis, but impeachment alone cannot be the driving force for the stock market's collapse because the economy is much bigger than the presidency. But in summary, this whole situation can provide some opportunities to buy great companies amidst the fear and panic. Specifically, I want you to take a look at the technology companies like Facebook, Tesla, MySpace, LimeWire, you know, the classics. Because technology companies, for whatever reason, are hit the hardest by news like this. Consequently, indubitably, they also recover the quickest when the dust settles. So for me, I wanted to initiate a position into Tesla or Facebook, but I'm still waiting for a bigger drop, but all of that is on my Patreon page. Shameless plug. Just kidding. I'm not ashamed at all. If I had to bet money on what's about to happen, I would say that we're gonna see a few more dips, probably all relating to Trump's tweets, but if anything, I want you to pay closer attention to how China is reacting to this impeachment news, because if China decides to back away from trade deal talks, then that's what might just move the markets. So definitely pay attention to the news as it relates to China. So don't panic, everything's gonna be all right, your portfolios are gonna be just fine, don't sell your stocks, just hold on to everything and just wait for a bigger pullback if there is going to be one. It's gonna be just a small bump in the road, and at worst, it's gonna be a great buying opportunity. If you guys wanna know specifically about what happens to the stock market during economic recessions, especially as it relates to dividend income investing, then check out my last video that I did called Top 5 Facts You Didn't Know About Passive Income Investing as it relates to dividends. That's a long title. Anyways, guys, love you. Thank you all so much. Usually I don't post videos in the middle of the week. I usually stick to Mondays and Fridays, but this time I decided to jump in and give you guys my thoughts. Love you all. See you soon, because I don't sleep at all. Bye-bye.